I'm a professional conductor, and in this video I want to share with you the 5 greatest operas of all time. The first one, I'm going to play a small part and then say a few things about it. The first opera is probably the most famous opera of all time, The Magic Flute from Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. In this opera, Tamino has to save Pamina from the evil character Sarastro, but soon he figures out that Sarastro is actually not the evil character, rather it's the mother of Pamina, who sent Tamino in the first place. But what this opera is actually about is love, honor and truth. It's an opera that questions, is what you believe true? Maybe think again, maybe it's not black and white. Every time you watch it, the Magic Flute says something else, and for everyone watching it, it says something completely different. Because the Magic Flute is a few hundred years old, there are some, let's say, funny texts in there. For example, because a black person is ugly, or a woman talks a lot and does not much. A lot of people criticize those texts still being used today. They say that they're kind of racist and sexist, and they're definitely true to some degree, but those librettos, how you call the texts of operas, they're definitely not patriarchal in my opinion, because look at the male characters, they're either super disgusting or the biggest simps of all time. Tamino here has just seen a picture of Pamina and he falls in love with her so badly that he wants to risk his own life to save her. But this probably also had to do with how you had to progress a story in the 18th century, because you didn't have electrical stages that could just turn around and switch location and time. You had to make everything happen in a time period of, I don't know, 48 hours, and I guess that's why people fall in love so fast in operas. But I still think there's some kind of truth in these over-exaggerations of operas that you can still see today in modern societies. And this is actually why you should listen to operas, because they are a reflection of how we humans are and serve as a mirror to our own behavior. Opera number 2. This was La Bohème from Giacomo Puccini, the first Italian opera on my list. A fan's favorite and deserved. I think Puccini is my favorite opera composer nowadays. La Bohème is about normal people and their struggles in life with money, love and death. The music is beautiful and the opera has an extremely over-exaggerated plot like basically every other opera. Characteristic for the music of La Bohème are parallel fifths in the melody, a lot of the seventh chords, a subtle Asian touch and the shifting from chords. The next opera. I'm not sure what my favorite opera is, but Hansel and Gretel is definitely genius. In another video, in which I mentioned every important composer that you should know, together with a few listening recommendations, I said that there are very few pieces I would consider as perfect, but this one is. I learned the complete opera 2 years ago, and when my teacher told me that I should learn it, I was quite disappointed because I never heard of it and I thought it must suck. But soon I realized I was wrong. Every number kept on being more and more beautiful than the last one. It's quite fascinating. Hansel and Gretel is the only famous piece by the composer Engelbert Humperdinck. You would think that someone who's able to compose something like this would have way more other incredible pieces. Hansel and Gretel is considered a children's opera, but that's stupid to say, everyone loves it. What this opera is about, for me, is the love and the worries of the parents in regards to their children when they realize that Hansel and Gretel are at the Ilsenstein, the place where the witch lives. The opera is slightly different from the original fairy tale, so the parents didn't want their children to get lost in the woods. Maybe for you, this opera would mean something completely different, but for me it's an homage to family and parenting. Number 4. This is definitely a very different kind of music. Richard Strauss Salome was composed around 10 years after La Bohème. As very typical for a Strauss opera, you can hear its extremely dramatic and aggressive dimensions. The plot is completely insane. Salome, the daughter of Herodias, wants to kiss Johanna on, aka John the Baptist, but he doesn't want to. So Salome tricked her stepdad, who's quite powerful, to bring her the head of Johanna on. How did she do that? By seducing her stepfather. I know few adult video genres that go back to this opera. And at the end, Herodes, the stepfather of Salome, orders her execution because I guess she's a maniac. Even if you have this huge, heavy orchestra, because it's Richard Strauss and it's super difficult to play, you have basically two extremes in terms of characters. On one side, you have this maniac, psycho, sexual, super aggressive woman. And on the other side, this holy man of God who is pure. And obviously, the music resembles this. Johanna is something like C major, clear and easier chords. It's a bit more slow and sacred. And on the other side, you have this super aggressive music. The last opera, I wanted to choose one from Richard Wagner, but I don't know enough to recommend just one, so I thought I'm just going to mention a few awesome parts that I would highly recommend listening to. The first one. This was the Lohengrin Overture, the second one. This was the Tristan Overture, and the third one. And this was the beginning of the second scene of The Rheingold. Check this video right here out next. Thank you for spotting this music, and we see each other on the next one.